Good morning, everyone. Shabbat Shalom. If you're out in the dining hall, we invite you to come in and join us for the Torah study. Let's go ahead and start with a word of prayer. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for blessing us with a Sabbath day where we can come together and study your word. Thank you for being with us in all that we do, and I ask that you guide our study and our conversation this morning. In your Son Yeshua's name I pray, amen. So the Torah portion this morning, and I'm going to slaughter this because my Hebrew is very bad. It's Vayetchanan, and it means I will plead. So we're going to also start with a blessing. Blessed are you, Yehovah our God, King of the universe, who has sanctified us with his commandments and has commanded us to engross ourselves in the words of Torah. Please, Yehovah our God, sweeten the words of Torah in our mouth and in the mouth of your people, the family of Israel. May we and our offspring and the offspring of your people, the house of Israel, all of us know your name and study your Torah for its own sake. Blessed are you, Yehovah, who teaches Torah to his people, Israel. Amen. And the portion this morning starts in Deuteronomy chapter 3, verse 23, and goes through chapter 7, verse 11. And we are going to start off with the Tony Robinson game to see how well you guys have studied this morning. I'm going to give you a word, and the first person that can read me the verse that the word comes from wins. We don't have a prize. But the first word of today is seek. Do we have a mic that can be run around? Mine came from the Complete Jewish Bible.
Okay. I'll look at that one.
We're looking for the word seek. Lonnie has it?
Deuteronomy 4:29. But from thence thou shalt seek the Lord thy God, thou shalt find him if thou seek him with all thy heart and with all thy soul.
Excellent. The next word is enough.
It's Deuteronomy 3:26. But the Lord was angry with me on your account and would not listen to me. So the Lord said to me, enough of that. Speak no more to me of this matter.
Very good. The next is actually a phrase, face to face. Face to face. Michael has it?
It is Deuteronomy 5, verse 4. And I talked with you face to face in the mount, out of the midst of the fire.
Excellent. And just two more. The next one is treasure. Looking for the word treasure. Over here.
What chapter are we going up to?
We're going through chapter 7, verse 11.
Okay. That's going to be verse 6. For you are a people holy to the Lord your God. The Lord your God has chosen you out of all the peoples on earth to be his people, his treasured possession.
Excellent. And the last one is love. Over here.
Chapter 6, verse 5, and you shall love Yehovah, your Elohim, with all your heart, all your being, and with all your might.
That's right. Good job, Mom. All right. So let's go ahead and start reading through the portion. If I can get a volunteer to read the first section, it's chapter 3, verse 23 through chapter 4, verse 4. All right, Stevie? Chapter 4, verse 4.
And I besought Yehovah at that time, saying, O Lord Yehovah, thou hast begun to show thy Eved, thy greatness, and thy mighty hand. For what Elohim is there in Shemayim or on Haaretz that can do according to thy works and according to thy might? Let me go over and see Haaretz, Hatovah, that is beyond Yarden, that fine hill country, and the Lebanon. But Yehovah was angry with me for your sakes, and would not hear me. And Yehovah said unto me, Enough from thee, speak no more unto me of this matter. For thee up into the top of Pisgah, and lift up thine eyes westward, and northward, and southward, and eastward, and see it with thine eyes, for thou shalt not go over this Yarden. But commission Yehoshua, and encourage him, and strengthen him, for he shall go over before this people, and he shall cause them to inherit Haaretz, which thou shalt see. So we abode in the valley over against Beit Peor. Now, therefore, Shema Yisrael, unto the Kukim, and unto the Mishpatim, which I teach you, to do them, in order that you may live, and go in and possess Haaretz, which Yehovah Elohei Atechem given you. You shall not add unto the word which I command you, neither shall you take anything from it, that you may shomer mitzvot of the commandments of Yehovah Elohechem, which I command you. Your eyes have seen what Yehovah did because of Baal Peor. For all the men that followed Baal Peor, Yehovah Eloheka hath destroyed them from among you. But ye that did have cleaving unto Yehovah Elohechem are alive, every one of you today.
Thank you very much, Stevie. Did anything stand out to you guys in especially the first part of this passage? I know when I was studying it and on our conversation on the way over here this morning, there were some things, especially in relation to the shadow and how everything in the Torah points to Yeshua. John?
Of course, the insistence of the Lord that Moses would not see the promised land was fulfilled in the New Testament, because when Jesus was on the mountain and transformed, Moses and Elijah appeared with him, and they were speaking together. So the Lord did not reject him permanently.
Kevin?
And it's interesting because this portion before, I always thought to myself how he didn't receive the promised land, and then I thought to myself, realizing the transfiguration that he talked about, even to applying for us, even though we do mess up, and it does not mean that he's finished with us. It means that if we truly are repentive and we do what we can, we still can I say, have his favor. And to think about the fact that this is a prophetic sign, if you will, a spiritual courtroom, where you had the law, the prophets, and Yeshua together confirming who he was.
Yeah, very good. I think when we were reading this morning, Moses' prayer, it reminded us of Yeshua's prayer in the garden. Please take this cup from me. We know, Father, that I know, Father, that this is what you've told me is going to happen, but does it have to? And in both cases, the Father said, yes, it has to happen. And another thing that came out of our discussion this morning was that we see here in these first few verses, and we know that Moses is a shadow of Yeshua, and he's a shadow of the suffering servant, and he did not get to go into the promised land at that time. Just as Yeshua on the cross, he did not get to inherit the land, so to speak, right at that point in time. He went back up to the Father, and he's going to come again to inherit the land for his people. And thought it was interesting. We've got Joshua here in verse 28, and it reads a lot to me like he is a shadow of the warrior king Messiah coming back. So there's just some thoughts that we had. Are there any other comments on this section? Donnie?
The name of the Torah portion, Ve'et Hanan, in Hebrew comes from the root Hanan, to be gracious, but Et Hanan is reflexive, so it means that he sought grace for himself. So there are 10 expressions of prayer, Rashi says. Ve'et Hanan is like one of them. And when you think of prayer, right, the Hebrew word is typically tefillah, prayer, not Ve'et Hanan, right? So Ve'et Hanan is showing that what the righteous do in their prayers is they do not tell God, look at everything I've done for you. Look at everything I've done to serve the kingdom. Look at everything, all the times I was obedient. Look at all the people I've touched. Please answer my prayer now. If there was anyone who had the right to do that, that's Moses. That's the patriarchs. He uses the merit of the patriarchs when he's praying at the golden calf. He says, remember Abraham, remember Isaac, remember Jacob. But he does not use merit when praying for himself to teach us an example for our own prayer. No matter how far you think you've arrived, always beg for grace, because Hanan relates to the Hebrew word chinam, which means free. I have nothing before God. I am nothing before God except what he graciously bestows on me. In the world of business, right, I appeal to self-interest. What can I give you? I'm negotiating with you. What can I give you? How can I appeal to your self-interest? But in this perspective, when it comes to God, it's different. How am I at your mercy? Just a thought.
Yeah, thank you very much.
As this gentleman was talking, it made me think, we refer back to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob when Moses was talking to God, and their merits. And I thought, well, really, it all goes back to God of who he is, Yehovah. And it's not about us and our merits. It's not even about Abraham's merits. It goes more deep. It's deeper than that. It's about who God is. And as we read in the scriptures, when he was destroying the peoples in Canaan for Israel, and they inherited the land, And then they became idolaters, just like humanity does. Like Joshua was saying, and even Gideon was saying, God, how can you destroy these people? I guess Isaiah was one of them that says, you can't destroy these people because what's going to happen to your name? You are the great Elohim. You are Yehovah, and if you destroy these people, they know the history back from Egypt all the way, and if you destroy them, then your name is no good anymore. And so then Yehovah turns around and he says, you are right, because of my name, I will not totally destroy Israel when they were evil. I just thought that was an interesting thought that popped into my head.
Thank you. Do we have any other comments on this section? All right, let's go ahead and read the next section. If I can get a volunteer to read Deuteronomy chapter 4, verses 5 through 40. Jason, thank you. Elizabeth, did I see you volunteer for the next one? I did.
Behold, I have taught you statutes and ordinances, even as the Lord my God commanded me, that you should do so in the middle of the land where you go to possess it. Keep therefore and do them, for this is your wisdom and your understanding in the sight of the peoples, who shall hear all these statutes and say, surely this great nation is a wise and understanding people. For what great nation is there that has a God so near to them as the Lord our God is whenever we call on him? What great nation is there that has statutes and ordinances so righteous? So all this law which I set before you today, only be careful and keep your soul diligently, lest you forget the things which your eyes saw, and lest they depart from your heart all the days of your life. But make them known to your children and your children's children, the day that you stood before the Lord your God in Horeb, when the Lord said to me, assemble the people to me, and I will make them hear my words, that they may learn to fear me all the days that they live on the earth, and that they may teach their children. You came near and stood under the mountain. The mountain burned with fire to the heart of the sky with darkness, cloud, and thick darkness. And Yahweh spoke to you out of the middle of the fire, and you heard the voice of words, but you saw no form. You only heard a voice. He declared to you his covenant, which he commanded to you to perform. Even the 10 commandments, he wrote them on 2 stone tablets. Then Yahweh commanded me at that time to teach you statutes and ordinances, that you might do them in the land where you go over to possess it. Be very careful, for you saw no kind of form in the day that Yahweh spoke to you in Horeb out of the middle of the fire, lest you corrupt yourselves and make yourself a carved image in the form of any figure, the likeness of male or female, the likeness of any animal that is in the earth, the likeness of any winged bird that flies in the sky, the likeness of anything that creeps on the ground, the likeness of any fish that is in the water under the earth. Unless you lift up your eyes to the sky, and when you see the sun and the moon and the stars, even all the army of the sky, you are drawn away and worship them and serve them, which Yahweh your Elohim has allotted to all the peoples under the whole sky. But Yahweh has taken you and brought you out of the iron furnace, out of Egypt, to be to him a people of inheritance, as it is today. Furthermore, Yahweh was angry with me for your sakes, and swore that I should not go over the Jordan, that I should not go in the good land which Yahweh your Elohim gives you for an inheritance. But I must die in this land. I must not go over the Jordan, but you shall go over and possess that good land. Be careful, lest you forget the covenant of Yahweh your Elohim, which he made with you, and make yourselves a carved image in the form of anything which Yahweh your Elohim has forbidden you. For Yahweh your Elohim is a devouring fire, a jealous God. You shall, when you father children and children's children, and you have been long in the land, and then corrupt yourselves and make a carved image in the form of anything, and do that which is evil in Yahweh your Elohim's sight to provoke him to anger, I call heaven and earth to witness against you today, that you soon utterly perish from off the land which you go over the Jordan to possess it. You will not prolong your days on it, but will be utterly destroyed. Yahweh will scatter you among the peoples, and you will be left few in number among the nations, where Yahweh will lead you away. There you will serve other gods, the work of men's hands, wood and stone, which neither see, nor hear, nor eat, nor smell. But from there you shall seek Yahweh your Elohim, and you will find him, when you search after him with all your heart and with all your soul. When you are in oppression, and all these things have come on you in the latter days, you shall return to Yahweh your Elohim and listen to his voice. For Yahweh your Elohim is a merciful God. He will not fail you, nor destroy you, nor forget the covenant of your fathers which he swore to them. For ask now the days that are past, which were before you, since the day that God created man on the earth, and from one end of the sky to the other, whether there has been anything as great as this thing is, or has been heard like it. Did a people ever hear the voice of God speaking out of the middle of the fire, as you have heard and live? Or has God tried to go and take a nation for himself from among other nations by trials, by signs, by wonders, by war, by a mighty hand, by an outstretched arm, and by great terrors, according to all that Yahweh your Elohim did for you in Egypt before your eyes? It was shown to you so that you might know that Yahweh is Elohim, that he is God. There is no one else beside him. Out of heaven he made you hear his voice, that he might instruct you. On earth he made you to see his great fire, and you heard his words out of the middle of the great fire. Because he loved your fathers, therefore he chose their offspring after them, and brought you out with his presence, with his great power, out of Egypt, to drive out nations from before you, greater and mightier than you, to bring you in, to give you their land for an inheritance, as it is today. Know therefore today, and take it to heart, that the Lord himself is God, in heaven above and on earth beneath. There is no one else. You shall keep his statutes and his commandments, which I command you today, that it may go well with you and with your children after you, that you may prolong your days in the land which Yahweh your Elohim gives you for all time. Then Moses set apart 3 cities beyond the Jordan toward the sunrise, that the manslayer might flee there, who kills his neighbor unintentionally and didn't hate him in the time past, and that fleeing to one of these cities he might live. Bezer in the wilderness, in the plain country for the Reubenites, and Ramoth in Gilead for the Gadites, and Golan in Bashan for the Manassites. This is the law which Moses set before the children of Israel. These are the testimonies and the statutes and the ordinances which Moses spoke to the children of Israel when they came out of Egypt, beyond the Jordan, in the valley opposite Beth Peor, in the land of Sihon, king of Amorites, who lived at Heshbon, whom Moses and the children of Israel struck when they came out of Egypt. They took possession of this land, and the land of Og, king of Bashan, the 2 kings of the Amorites who were beyond the Jordan toward the sunrise. From Aror, which is on the edge of the valley of Arnon, even Mount Zion, which is called Hermon, and all the Arabah beyond the Jordan eastward, even to the sea of Arabah under the slopes of Pisgah.
Thank you, Jason. Do we have any comments on this section? I know it covered quite a bit.
My son and I were talking about this morning, and the fact that it did come to pass, that the people did turn their hearts away and worship other gods. They were scattered across the nations. But what's important is that Yahweh is bringing the hearts back to him.
Absolutely. Okay. All right. So, when I walked in this morning, this is on the picture of Jerusalem up front. This is standing over it. What is it? They're all over the church. What is it? It's sure. What is it? No, it's an image of any man or woman or animal or bird or thing. I come into church and I'm looking for a Torah observant place who believes what the Torah says and does. What do we do with these? That's my question.
I don't want them up here.
I'm really nuts. I'm just so. We need a burn.
But I think not on Shabbat. But I do think that idolatry is kind of the heart of Deuteronomy. This section kind of speaks to what all of it is about. God wants us to focus on Him, not on images or anything that we can necessarily relate to, but on Him for who He is. And that was part of our discussion on our way here this morning as well. We were talking, and I think we as men, we as people, we want to bring God into something that we can understand. And part of it is a control thing. We like to control things as people. We like to be in control and pick and choose our own what's right and what's wrong instead of being forced into somebody else. Even if it's the Father's, it kind of goes against our free will nature. But by bringing the Father down to something tangible, by bringing our Savior down to a person, or even ascribing like the golden calf, something tangible, or the sun, the moon, and stars, we're taking the Creator and we're turning Him into something created. And in doing that, it gives us an aspect of control. If it's something created, something tangible, we can assign attributes to it. We can look at it however we feel like makes us the happiest. But God specifically says in these verses that we just read, but all throughout the Torah and all throughout the entirety of the Bible, to worship Him for who He is and not try to make Him into anything else. John, you've got something?
So in this section, it says that they actually heard the voice of God speaking to them. And in Exodus 19 and 20, He delivers the Ten Commandments directly. So the question is, what about the rest of what He wanted to speak? It's apparent that because Israel was terrified because of the earthquakes and the fire and smoke and booming sound, they asked for Moses to intercede, and they told him, "You listen to him and tell us what he says, but we cannot bear to hear his voice." So the question is, the Lord said, what they have said is good. So if there was more communication than what He intended, where is that? So we're coming up on this section around chapter 5 in the book of Deuteronomy, where it says that basically Moses says, what you ask for me to receive, I now give to you. So it means that for almost 40 years, Moses retained that. But the question is, how can anyone remember something flawlessly for that long, word for word? Now, there are instances where humans remember things, like a man who was a missionary in a Stone Age tribe. He had communicated to the tribe right before he left some things, and when he got back about 3 years later, the tribe reminded him what he had said, and the tribe knew word for word what he had said to them in their language. So that's not possible, I think, for as much as Deuteronomy covers. So, how is it? So in, I think it's Galatians chapter 3, it mentions that angels were present. So it's apparent that the angels were the ones who were. Assisting Moses in remembering that much wording from God, since it was essential that it be delivered word for word correct.
And I think one way or another, it required God's direct intervention to make sure that His words got to His people the way that He wanted them to. And I really liked that part where, at first reading in there where the people of Israel are afraid of God's voice, at least my first thought is, what a bunch of cowards. They have the ability to hear from their Creator. But God says that it was good that they feared Him and good that they had that respect. And I thought that was a good thing for me to hear, because we're told over and over again to fear the Lord our God. In my studies for this section, I read that the commandments and there was a whole bunch of statutes and judgments and commandments and laws and testimonies that we're told to remember. And there's 5 different Hebrew words that are used for these. They're kind of separated out. Hukim is one of them, and they're statutes that are, there's not really an offered rationale. It's just commanded. This is what Yehovah says, so this is what we do. There's mishpatim, or judgments, which have a reason that's given or a reason that's obvious for why they're followed. And then there's the mitzvot, which are the commandments, the laws of the things that we should do. There's edots, which are testimonies. And then there's the Torah, which is law. It's not a legal code. It's not do's and don'ts, but it's a covenant between us and the Father. And he goes more into the covenant aspect of that. Moses does later on in Deuteronomy. But one of my big takeaways also was the command to pass it down to your children and your grandchildren, to pass it down generationally, to make sure that these things aren't forgotten, to make it part of daily life, to live it out and teach it out to all of your family. And I would include our family in that as well. Stevie?
I believe it was several years ago, Eddie Chumney was speaking here, and he made a really great point of the different terms related to the Torah. Even the Torah itself can mean teaching, can mean law, can be instruction. But he focused here, and we see a lot of focus here on kukim and mishpatim, and which is usually translated with statutes and judgments. And one of the points that he made, and that's really stayed with me, he said, kukim focuses primarily on our relationship with Elohim, where mishpatim focuses on our relationship with each other. But the amazing thing is, he says, when people treat each other unrighteously, when we wrong each other and we justify it, we justify it based on kukim, which is really related, is our relationship with God, not with each other. But because they do not align themselves with our understanding of what that relationship should be like, kukim, we feel justified. I'm just saying that very generally. We feel justified in treating others apart from the mishpatim that we know. He said, there's very little disagreement with how we are supposed to treat each other with mishpatim, but we will set it aside because of chukim.
Hence all the thousands of denominations, because we can't just get along. Yeah, that was very good. Thank you. Yeah. John?
So it's apparent that some of what's being talked about are particular situations and decisions that were given them by God based on the problems that they encountered in the wilderness. So in our law, for example, originally it was based on a biblical format, but how is it that we've got what we have today? So what happened is in 1948, there was a Supreme Court decision where they formally rejected the Bible as having any authority in American society. And if you look at measures of the health of society, like juvenile delinquency, murder rate, other forms of disruption in society, it's apparent that after 1948, the measures began to accelerate. And, by the 1960s, we went through what's called the cultural revolution. And, we've all gone through riots and other forms of destruction in our society. So the Supreme Court no longer has any authoritative general code like the Constitution. In a more liberal interpretation, the law or the Constitution is something that is a flexible, revolutionary document, always evolving. And the main driver then of decisions is prior decisions, but no authoritative source. So I think what our society needs to recover is some sort of authority apart from just the thousands of decisions that have been made by the Supreme Court over the years. And it's not going to be like the Quran or something else. But the problem is Oklahoma, for example, years ago, wrote a document that rejected the Quran as having any legal authority in that state. on appeal that went to the Supreme Court and our Supreme Court. And Oklahoma's rejection was rejected by the Supreme Court, which implicitly means the Supreme Court is allowing the Quran in certain circumstances to be authoritative, but not allowing the Bible to have that same authority. And I think that's part of the problem in our society.
Yeah, and I think that dovetails really nicely into what we're getting ready to read about how all of these mitzvot, all of the commandments, all of the Torah in general was done so that our days may be long in the land that the Father gives us, so that we can enjoy that. And if we don't have that Torah, we end up with all the curses that are throughout the Torah if we don't follow that. I have one more quick comment before we read the next section, just something that I thought was kind of neat. Typically when the Torah talks about the land that's being given to Israel, it talks about haaretz, which is kind of the entity of the land, the figurative land. But in verse 40 here, it talks about ha'adama, which is the actual dirt, the actual soil of the land of Israel, which is what was given and promised to the children forever. So, Elizabeth, will you read the next section, Deuteronomy chapter 5, verses 1 through 18, please?
Then Moshe called to all Israel and said to them, "Listen, Israel, to the laws and rulings which I am announcing in your hearing today, so that you will learn them and take care to obey them. Adonai, our God, made a covenant with us at Horeb. Adonai did not make this covenant with our fathers, but with us who are all of us here alive today. Adonai spoke with you face to face from the fire on the mountain. At that time I stood between Adonai and you in order to tell you what Adonai was saying, because on account of the fire you were afraid and wouldn't go up onto the mountain. He said, I am Adonai your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, where you lived as slaves. You are to have no other gods before me. You are to not make for yourselves a carved image or any kind of representation of anything in heaven above, on the earth beneath, or in the water below the shoreline. You are not to bow down to them or serve them, for I, Adonai your God, am a jealous God, punishing the children for the sins of the parents, also the third and fourth generation of those who hate me, but displaying grace to the thousandth generation of those who love me and obey my mitzvot. You are not to misuse the name of Adonai your God, because Adonai will not leave unpunished someone who misuses his name. Observe the day of Shabbat, to set it apart as holy, as Adonai your God ordered you to do. You have 6 days to labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is a Shabbat for Adonai your God. On it you are not to do any kind of work, not you, your son or your daughter, not your male or female slave, not your ox, your donkey, or any of your other livestock, and not the foreigner staying with you inside the gates to your property, so that your male and female servants can rest just as you do. You are to remember that you were a slave in the land of Egypt, and Adonai your God brought you out from there with a strong hand and an outstretched arm. Therefore, Adonai your God has ordered you to keep the day of Shabbat. Honor your father and mother, as Adonai your God ordered you to do, so that you will live long and have things go well with you in the land Adonai your God is giving you. Do not commit murder. Do not commit adultery. Do not steal. Do not give false evidence against your neighbor. Do not covet your neighbor's wife. Do not covet your neighbor's house, his field, his male or female slave, his ox, his donkey, or anything that belongs to your neighbor.
All right, thank you. Do we have any comments on this section? Kevin?
So in lieu of things that we have talked about, trying to wrap my head around, like, when it talks about idolatry in those days, the purpose for idolatry was to create something that they would worship and then try to manipulate with that idolatry. And then it says that we're not supposed to. And then in discussions of what I heard just a little bit ago, then how is not this the two pictures of what we had here? For me, I think of the two pictures where the fire by day and the cloud by night were a remembrance to me. I never at one point in time ever worshiped them or tried to manipulate anything. So where do we understand what's going on in lieu of we want to be careful not to have idols? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, and I think, let's see, when he talks about it, he's saying, I am your God. Don't try to make something to replace me, or to don't make a box to put me in. And I don't know what that looks like for everyone, but yeah, he's very specific about the not to look like people, animals, created things that he's created.
So I was just reading a Mormon book written by a Mormon scholar, and I had no idea that it was. I was reading it last month, and it was talking about the Greek philosophy and relation to the early Catholic Church. And the Mormon author was making an argument for how idols, like how God says no idols of me. It's more descriptive of it's saying that God eats or God feels or God does these things, and the idols don't do that, so that's why. But when we consider stuff like, and this ties into what he was saying, when we consider stuff like the Holy of Holies, and how there are cherubim, there's statues of cherubim, but there aren't any statues of God. We can consider from that point on that the problem wasn't literally whether or not God can do things that humans do, but more so the representation. Cherubim can be represented because they have a physical form. But God cannot be. That's why there's no statue of him. But there are statues of cherubim because they have a physical form that can be represented. So it's not about whether or not he can feel. It's not about human attributes of feeling or touch and being able to eat or speak. It's literally the representation. So in relation to this discussion, I think the target is God only. I don't think it's stuff like he was referencing, a pillar of smoke, stuff like that.
Kevin wants to add.
Then in lieu of, so then the fire by day and the cloud by night that we have hanging up in front is actually a representation of Yeshua. Is that what I'm understanding? I just was curious. I'm just bringing it up not to cause...
I think that's above my pay grade.
But what he's saying is a valid point, and we do need to examine ourselves, and this is the month of Teshuvah. Did I say that right? The month of where we're to be repentive. Is it Teshuvah? No, I said it wrong. Is it right? Anyway, to where we're supposed to examine things, and we're supposed to, and so I'm just curious. It's kind of, I want to grow, not just know, and so therefore I'm trying to.
And I think most of the examples that we have of idolatry of the Israelites, growing up and hearing the stories, I always thought, they said, we don't like Jehovah anymore. We want to worship this God. And I always thought it was weird that they would turn, but it was more that other people worship their gods like this. We want to add that into our worship of the Father. It's which becomes idolatry. It's bringing things in to represent God, and bringing those things into worship that God has said not to do.
This is what he was warning of when he said, when you come into the land and you get comfortable, you're going to drag this stuff back in. Well, the Hellenization was going on during a time, and they had the Greek stuff, and they keep trying to bring it back into the synagogues and into the houses of worship. But he tells us, teach your children, this is what happened to us. It's not the image, you got to think of what's going on in your mind, and what do we think of? we try to imagine God. So then we start seeking God. We don't need anything. It's supposed to be kind of a mystery. We have to seek God. We have to find him. We have to look for him. We can't look and say, well, that must have been a neat thing. When I went to Israel, and it was like, it's nothing what I thought it was in my mind. When I got there, it was like, wow, this isn't quite as grandiose as I thought it was. There's a lot of rocks around. But there was what was going on is that people there really seek God. And then when you feel his presence there, that's another thing. That's what it is. It's not, you can't get that out of any image or any picture or anything, but it has to come from things that your parents tell you happened to us, and we know that it's true.
You would think we as people would eventually figure that out, because isn't it that way in everything in life? You're in elementary school, and you know high school's coming up, and you think you know what it's going to be like, but then you get there and it's nothing like you ever imagined. And then the same when college comes around. It's like nothing you've heard all about it, older siblings or parents or friends or whatever, but it's nothing like you've ever imagined. And marriage is the same, and having kids is the same. People can tell you all day long what it's like, but you don't know until you live it. And like you're saying, that's the way it is.
It all comes from revelation that God gives you. If he's chosen you, he's going to guide you.
Yep. All right, and Sean's saying we are done. So I've got one more quick comment, and then we'll close with a blessing. And my comment is that I really like how it starts out, chapter 5. It says, Shema Israel, Shema, listen and obey, listen and do. And then it says to learn the commandments and obey them, which is, again, listen and do, learn and do. It's not a passive thing that he's calling us to. It's hear what I say, learn it, take it to heart, do it, practice it out, live it out in your life. Let's go ahead and close with a blessing. Blessed are you, Yehovah our God, King of the universe, who has given us a Torah of truth, implanting within us eternal life. Blessed are you, Yehovah our God, who gives the Torah. Amen. Thank you all for your comments.